Thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists thus far. For our closing keynote conversation, Tackling Critical Environmental Challenges Through Tech, please welcome Footprint Coalition members Robert Downey Jr., founder, Rachel Kropa, managing director, and Jonathan Schulhoff, managing partner, and moderator Martin Giles, CIO network editor, Forbes.
Wow, that was a fantastic conversation. Dream big, think big, aim big. Artie, Ruth, Tarika, wonderful job. And dreaming big and thinking big is what we're about now. As I mentioned in our introduction to the whole episode today, we are thrilled to have the Footprint Coalition join us for a keynote conversation. The coalition, which Robert Downey Jr. unveiled at Amazon's REMARS event in Las Vegas in 2019, that's when we could still meet in person, do you remember that? Describes itself as a group of investors, donors, and storytellers committed to scaling technologies to restore our planet. And that's an issue that's never been more important. I was just looking yesterday at some statistics that came through that shows November was the warmest ever November for the entire planet. December is heading to be a record too. You know, the impact on public health and the health of our planet is deeply, deeply worrying. Deforestation, pollution, melting ice caps, devastating wildfire. I could go on. The list is endless. The world grapples with this devastating pandemic. You know, we simply can't afford to ignore the fact that climate change is really the existential threat of our time. And that's why it's so great to have the coalition with us. And to tackle these challenges, it basically pursues three different kind of routes. It gives grants to nonprofits that are advancing technologies that are of environmental interest. It makes actual investments in companies that have high growth, sustainable business models. And no surprise, given that Robert Downey Jr. is involved, it has some wonderful content, some great videos, explainers that get to the heart of the core issues that are at stake here. So to discuss the coalition's vision, I am absolutely delighted to have founder Robert Downey Jr. with us and Rachel Kropa, who's the managing director of the coalition, and the managing partner, John Schulhoff. Terrific. Thank you guys for joining us. Robert, let's kick off. I mean, can you just talk through what gave you the idea, the inspiration for the coalition in the first place? And you know, was there like a triggering moment, or is it like a kind of growing awareness of the importance of the issues that I've just been talking about?
Well, first, Martin, thanks a lot for having us. This has been great. It's very focusing when you have to actually be on message and talk about what you're passionate about in a way that's that people can hear. So last year, three things were all happening at once. I was wrapping up my Marvel contract. We had done this series called The Age of AI, and I was asked to be a keynote speaker at, like you said, at REMARS. And by the end of it, I just thought, like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I just kind of said, I'm announcing a coalition. I wanted it to be about something more than just participating. And it also seemed like there is this existential threat. I've been dealing with false existential threats in the Marvel universe, and I thought it was time to you know, think about the real ones.
Great. And why coalition? The word coalition, that's kind of an interesting word. What made you choose that?
I think it's hard for massive teams to do much but small moves sometimes, just from the weight. It's like an aircraft carrier. And so we were thinking of getting smaller groups and start building it out and be a little more of a Chris Craft. But look, the truth be told is, I said, I'm starting a coalition. And I was like, what is a coalition? And then thankfully, I already knew Rachel and John, and then they kind of came in, and that's our triptych.
Got it. Perfect. So Rachel, let me bring you in here. You know, one of the key pillars of the coalition is grant making. Can you just talk a little bit about the philosophy behind that? What are you trying to achieve? And kind of perhaps give a couple of examples of grants that you've made.
Yes. So yeah, and just to put a really fine point on the FPC mission, we're both mobilizing people through engaging content, and we're mobilizing capital through investments and grants. But for my part of it, like Robert said, I came to it knowing him because I was a trained biochemist, and then I worked at a big talent agency where he was represented, but I was running the corporate foundation, and I had seen every different environmental nonprofit. Environmentalism was my favorite area of philanthropy, but I was having to work across a lot of different areas. And so when he announced this, I naturally pounced on it and I said, what can we do together? I think this would be amazing. This is my favorite stuff. And he said, well, let's look at doing it together. So that was about a year ago. And to answer your question about grant making, philanthropic money for us is really going to be about pushing boundaries. So a lot of these fields that we're looking at haven't been developed enough for traditional funding mechanisms. And so you have scientists who have a really great idea and they just don't have a way to do something radical about it. So that's what we're really looking at. And what you can see on our website right now, there's a couple different grants that we've already made. So cellular agriculture is the first one. And that's with an organization called New Harvest that does expressly what I was just talking about, because the field of funding hasn't been that developed yet. And they're doing biotechnology and tissue engineering and synthetic biology, and they're making acellular products like milk and cellular products like meat, but they're doing it without harming animals because they can synthesize these things in a lab. So the grant with New Harvest is actually around safety protocols, because there hasn't been a way to sort of bring these products to market safely yet and figure out exactly how you're going to sell them. So all of the people making these products had to decide what are the ways that we think are the safest things that we need to be talking about to bring all of these products to market to lift all boats together. You'll also see one more on there that's microplastics, and that's more like a robotic technology. And it's passing wastewater through a small, almost like a vacuum filter, and you're having a variety of things in that wastewater, but microplastics being the most difficult and persistent one to extract. And so those, as they pass through, are kind of filtered out, and that could happen at a wastewater treatment plant, or might also happen at a residential scale. So we have a young scientist who's working on that. And then there's a third one that's on the horizon for us, which is called Aqualink. And they have smart buoys that are both satellite connected and solar powered. And they have a couple sensors on them that measure at depth. You have satellite technology that can really measure temperature right now at the surface, but at depth it's a little harder. So what they're doing is building a global network of people who all are managing these smart buoys in their different locations. And then they will be able to take pictures at the locations that are real time, that match with the real time data. And so we can have a map essentially of what's happening in real time with respect to temperature, so people can act on those things. So these are all it's a variety of different things that we're looking at in terms of technology, anything from autonomous, vehicles to like AI and nanotechnology and big data and, geodesign, anything. But we really want to do it at the very forefront, right? Because for the grant making purposes, that's what's going to move the needle. And then, we'll get on to the later stage stuff that John has.
Can't you tell when you're talking to a real science nerd? This would be when I was like dealing with the people that I was studying to play Tony Stark. I was like, they live for this. They're focused yet radical.
I love it so much. And I will say I'm a generalist because I really like the communication of science. And I don't consider myself a particular expert in any one of these things that we're examining, but I really want to make sure that scientists can tell their story. And hence, this is why it's such a great match for Robert and I to do this work together.
That's an interesting segue to storytelling, because Robert, I mentioned, that there's a big storytelling element to what you're trying to do. Can you just talk through that and the kind of thinking behind it?
Sure. I mean, look, I was watching the Power of Myth series. Bill Moyer's interviewing Joseph Campbell. I mean, George Lucas, everybody in my industry, everybody refers to the stuff of storytelling. Oh, you're a storyteller, but it's almost blasé. I think it really is. I check out. It's the information age. If you're not engaging me, and I'm not saying clickbait or social media or that we're all automatons and it's just, whatever the easiest way, but it's all changing. And so just the fact that I'm able to learn while I'm exploring something and kind of have a bit of an open mind with it. But it's what I've been doing since I was a kid. I take direction and then I have feedback. I'm like, would it be better if so and so did this, and whatever. But it's really what Johnny said. Johnny said that the media vehicle in this is what supercharges everything else. That is where we're at. That is the state of the union. And all the tech talk in the world doesn't go anywhere if you can't package it and present it in a way that's digestible and actionable.
Got it.
Well, and I think, just building on that point, so much of what we do and so much of what you've been talking about in this forum is about inspiring people to want to do the work, inspiring people to form capital, form companies, take risks, be ambitious in how they do things. And so much of that stems from having an audience that cares and being able to activate that audience through content. And so after having spent a career building companies, several clean tech businesses myself, and as an entrepreneur, when Robert, and we've been friends for 15 years, when he decided he wanted to do this and told me about his ambition to do something meaningful at the nexus of sustainability with the enormous problems that the world faces, and technology, where I think he's the best storyteller ever, I jumped at the chance. And it's because I believe that that power to inspire people and capital is really going to serve us well. So in order to test that thesis, we went out on a listening tour to meet with some of the world-class investors in the category, who gave us an open arms response, introduced us to some of their great portfolio companies, and have been invited to participate. So we said, okay, well, why don't we start making some investments in some of these companies, and then let's start creating content and telling the world about our journey of discovery and see what happens. And
I've heard you talk about.
They accused me of credibility, and
I
did not debate it.
You did not debate the fact that, but I've heard you talk, both Robert and John, about this kind of flywheel effect that you're trying to kind of like implement here. I mean, I think we have a graphic. Can we just show the flywheel graphic?
Picture is worth 1,000 you know what?
That's absolutely right. John, do you want to kind of just like very briefly kind of walk us through this?
So look, we look to partner with great investors and learn about the best companies. We like to tell those companies' stories, bring those issues to light for the public. In doing so, mobilizing an audience and a community to coalesce around the issues that are there. And then importantly, and this is where we sort of see this going full circle, is inviting that audience to participate with us. We think that the traditional models of raising venture capital from anonymous institutions at scale every 3 or 4 years, it doesn't fit if what you're trying to do is activate the audience to care and engage with you in those very same companies. And so what we're trying to do then is figure out a way to mobilize the audience to take action, donate, invest with us, communicate to the world the importance of these issues, vote, buy the product. So all of that we think will accelerate if we're able to bring these things a full circle. So we can help our investors, we can help our companies, we can help our audience and the world by seeing those things reinforcing each other.
That's terrific. I just want to take in a couple of really good audience questions. They always try to put me out of a job by asking really good questions. So let's take those, and then in a couple of minutes I want to come back. So first of all, has the Footprint Coalition done human tests with cellular agriculture? Not yet, is my guess, but Rachel?
I'm not totally sure in what sense. I mean, the idea that tissue engineering has been around for a long time, and there's organs that people are making in labs is definitely something that we will look at. For the moment, this is really about providing an alternative protein source when there's going to be 9.8 billion people on the planet, and we're not going to be able to figure out how to have enough livestock. I think takes up something like 70% of the agricultural surface. So it's really a matter of figuring out how we can feed people for us at the moment. But, there definitely are extensions of this that happen in the human realm that are really valuable in the medical space as well. And certainly, the people that are on this call, the people who know so much about how robotics plays into this, how AI plays into this, how synthetic biology might work, and what the things are that they all care about. I mean, we're really actively looking for ideas that people think are at the forefront or at the leading edge of what technology can do. And so,
and you've got some innovation challenge going on. Do you want to just talk briefly about that?
Sure. So it's open now, actually, until December 21st. We have something with our friends at experiment.com. So if you go to experiment.com/grants/conservation tech, read about this challenge where basically citizen scientists can apply to be part of this crowdfunding exercise that we're doing, where they'll apply until December 21st. That period will close, and then we'll basically put it to the community from the January 12th to February 12th to see, if we can get people excited about a variety of different conservation tech.
Got it. I want everyone on this call to put some ideas in. Robert.
Listen to me. If I'm in a position to eat my own meat, you'll know because we will capture it. This is where I'm useful.
And I have a great audience question for you, Robert. Do you remain optimistic when it comes to unwinding climate changes? I mean, are you confident? I've seen you say kind of like, if we get this right in 10 years, we can reverse much of the damage. Do you really believe that? Are you that optimistic? That's pretty optimistic.
I do, and I believe that big data and AI and robotics are critical, not only to manage that, but it's a new psychology. It's a way of saying, this ain't, Skynet. This isn't Terminator. This is something that in this crisis gives us the best opportunity to use what we have and what we know. And again, going back to something that the most exciting thing that we've done besides figure out what we are and feel confident in that is, again, going back and looking at the ethos of it. Like, wow, in cellular agriculture, they need to be funded to start figuring out what are the rules of how to do this in a way that is responsible. Now, the information age exploded and got out ahead of us. There was no steering committee. And so, but I'm not afraid of that. I'm more hopeful than ever. And by the way, I got to thank you, Martin. Just the fact that we were invited to be here is so validating and is so meaningful to us. And any and everybody that's watching, the coalition is you. The coalition is, this is what we can do when those turf wars and boundaries are broken down. And we are not just trying to protect our bottom line. We're trying to institute actual change.
I think that's great. I mean, you're not trying to protect the bottom line. It's interesting because some people say, well, Hollywood celebrities, they go and do these things. They don't really mean it. They don't put money back. But actually, you look at the bottom line as well because you're making concrete investments. I mean, John, could you just talk a little bit about the insect deal that you've done?
Yeah.
I know it's like the world's biggest bug factory. I mean, perfect for Iron Man. Talk about that. I mean, $224 million funding round, 415 or something, 400+ million in total. In France, what is it? What attracted you to it? Where did the money come from?
So, Insect is building, as you've suggested, a massive factory for manufacturing bugs in a controlled environment. And we know that those insects are an incredibly protein-dense source of feed. Initially, it's focused on the aquaculture market. So unfortunately, while we've done a good job of moving to farm-raised fish, and we'll need to continue to do that if we're going to feed a massively growing human population, increasing amounts of protein, unfortunately, even that farm-raised fish is often fed a diet of wild-caught anchovies. And so that feed depletes the ocean stock on which so many other species depend. So by densifying the production of a protein source that would provide feed to that market in a manufactured environment, we can really avert that kind of increased tension on the food system in the ocean. As far as what Insect is doing, and this goes to what Robert said, and the ability to use AI and robotics in applications like this, and could cite n number of examples of it, is that company is moving 100,000 larval trays through various phases of larval development every day. And the only way to do that is by having a computer model that is improving over time, that is looking, using computer enhanced vision at these larval stages, is optimizing the conditions for larval growth through temperature changes, through sweeping of the fecal matter, lots of different aspects of it that go into optimizing production to, at the back end, produce the largest output of insects, and as I've just alluded to, a large output of fertilizer as a natural byproduct into what becomes a negative carbon cycle for producing that protein. So huge problem, ready market for it. We love, this company was already scaling when we got involved with it. So they're building this massive factory and have already sold out the annual production of their first factory. So now it's about stamping out additional factory units, but a broad patent portfolio. And, I think not to be diminished, especially as relates to AI, it's the first applications of data sets on how to manage larval growth in a factory environment that are using machine learning algorithms to do so. You could take any problem in trying to address these climate challenges, and when you're creating product approaches that are fundamentally improving with utilization because the algorithms are getting smarter as we feed more and more data into them, we are accelerating the rate of innovation and the optimal production rate out of these various applications. So whether that's...
It gives a whole new meaning to bug bounties. I love it.
Sure.
Just two things. One, you voiced a lot of skepticism earlier on of VC, John. Are you going to set your own fund up? What's the plan?
Oh, well, I'm not skeptical. Please don't take me wrong.
Okay.
We can't be all things to everybody. I just think that for us, since we are really dealing with a content-led approach to try to mobilize a huge audience to care, raising capital from an anonymous source of pension funds or from an elite group of billionaires wouldn't serve the purpose as well as if we could do direct outreach to our audience and say, hey, come with us into that club of investments. You're going to be here alongside these top tier venture capital funds who are asking us to participate with them. So
if you don't democratize a movement, then it's just really for the few and far between and their own halo effect. And you're thrice removed from it. It does not appeal to the lay person.
And it doesn't go fast enough for what we need on this wicked problem. There's so much here that we have to work on really quickly.
Yes. Before we take another question, I just want to say the investments that we're super excited about is we talked about, RWDC is a plastic thing. Cloud paper is bamboo toilet paper. It's a huge idea. Turn-tide is switch reluctance motors, which is 19th century tech that would only work now and be scalable with AI. So that I really think speaks to the term. And then again, in the storytelling thing is this Arcadia Earth, which is, how would you describe it, Rachel? It's basically like a immersive, experiential activism type spot, right?
Yeah, people are familiar with the Museum of Ice Cream, but for the planet, basically.
Yes.
Wow. Hi.
Back
just
to
as
you, buddy.
said that, the sun came on behind me. You lit me up. Robert, we have just very little time left, but we have some very, very top executives, many top executives on this call, who are all sort of, managing large budgets, and they are investing in technologies that consume energy, that kind of, output gases, in some cases, data centers, energy out.
Yeah.
What kind of call to action do you give to the CIO community here? Talk about mobilization. How would you like to see them mobilize?
Well, it's always about cooperation. It's like when you have an all hands problem, all of a sudden partnerships that can supercharge the process become critical. You want to build out dynamic teams to have a genuine impact, and it can't be about a turf war anymore. It needs to be somewhere between, we'll tell you how well we did because this is our product, because we're essentially capitalists. And then how can we not make it open source, but how can we actually tackle and address this? So again, I would reach out and just say, please, we are useful, we are motivated. We're going to be announcing a few things in the next several months that have never been done before in the space of business model and with what we can do with media. And we want to help, and we think well, I know they're smart enough. I am certainly, I have an incomplete education.
Well, iron rule from Iron Man: mobilize, cooperate, let's be innovative, let's find solutions to these really pressing problems. Robert, Rachel, John, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Well, hope you have us back sometime. Thanks a ton, Martin.
Thank you so much, Martin.
Thank you. Thank you very much.